I was kicked back in one of the corner chairs, half listening to the chatter, watching my wife from across the room. Her name was Emily, Emily Parker back in the day, before she became Emily Harris. That night, though, she was something else entirely. Her black hair draped over her shoulders, that red dress hugging every inch of her like it had been stitched onto her body. I wasn't the only one who noticed. Every guy in that room had done a double take the second she walked in. Emily had always had that effect on people. It wasn't even something she tried to do, she just lit up a room. And that night, surrounded by our closest circle of friends, she was glowing. I remember thinking how lucky I was, how proud. What a joke. The night had started off innocent enough. Someone suggested we play truth or dare. A bit childish, yeah. But with the right crowd and enough liquor, that game tends to pull off the mask people wear. First few rounds were harmless. Silly stuff. Take a shot without using your hands. Text your ex something embarrassing. Run outside in your boxers for 10 seconds. We all laughed. No one really took anything too seriously. But like every good party game, it didn't stay cute for long. Then it was Tyler's turn. Been my buddy since college. Funny, charming, always knew how to stir the pot. He grinned like a devil, leaned forward, and spun the empty beer bottle on the coffee table. Everyone watched as it slowed, then landed squarely on Emily. She cocked an eyebrow and gave a little swirl to her wine. "Hit me," she said, half laughing. "Truth or dare?" Tyler asked, already smirking like he knew what he wanted her to say. She didn't hesitate. "Dare." There was a flicker in the air, like the moment before a storm rolls in. Everyone leaned forward. It was no longer a joke. Everyone could feel it. Tyler paused for dramatic effect, letting the room stew. "Okay," he finally said, drawing it out. "I dare you to either tell your husband the biggest secret you've ever kept from him, or sleep with 2 guys in this room. Right now." Laughter erupted. Shuck. Some people clapped, others just gasped. No one expected that. And neither did I. But in that moment, even through the alcohol and the noise, something deep in my gut twisted. I figured Emily would just wave it off, make some sarcastic comment, roll her eyes like she always did. But she didn't. She just took a slow sip from her wine glass, unfazed. Then she set it down, looked Tyler square in the eye, and smiled in this way that made every hair on the back of my neck stand up. "I never back down from a challenge," she said. That's when everything started to tilt sideways. She stood up slowly, heels clicking against the hardwood. There was this shift, like the air had gotten heavier. No one was laughing anymore. A hush settled in. Someone whispered, "She's not serious, right?" But Emily didn't even glance at me. She turned toward Eric and Adam, 2 of our friends, and gave them a look that made my stomach churn. "You 2 in?" she asked, like she was inviting them to join a game of darts instead of setting a grenade in the middle of our marriage. My heart slammed against my ribs. I still had time to stop this. To remind everyone this was supposed to be fun. That there were lines you didn't cross, no matter how drunk you were. "Emily," I said, my voice low, trying to stay calm, "you can still choose the truth." She finally looked at me, her eyes sparkling with something I couldn't place. "But where's the fun in that?" she said softly, and just like that, she reached for Eric's hand and pulled him toward the guest room. Adam hesitated, glanced at me, then at the others, then followed. The door shut behind them. The sound echoed. The room fell dead silent. Nobody laughed. Nobody said a word. The vibe had completely collapsed. I sat there, frozen, gripping the armrests so hard my hands were trembling. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Others avoided my eyes altogether. And then I heard it, her laugh. Muffled, but clear enough. Followed by the sound of voices. The distinct, unmistakable sound of a zipper. That's when I stood up. Couldn't sit still anymore. My legs barely worked. My head was spinning. I needed air. I needed anything but this nightmare. I walked out. And no one followed. It was just a game, right? The drive home felt like I was trapped inside a vacuum. Just the dull hum of tires rolling over pavement and the occasional flicker of streetlights casting long shadows across the dashboard. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. My hands were locked tight around the steering wheel, jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Everything inside me felt empty, hollowed out. Emily sat beside me, completely unfazed. She was scrolling through her phone, like she'd just come from a dinner party, not from whatever the hell that had been back there. Her leg was crossed casually, her heel bouncing slightly, the same one that had clicked against the floor as she walked out of that room. Like it was all a joke. Like it hadn't meant anything. I couldn't even look at her. Not because I was angry. No, that would have been easier. What I felt was colder. More dangerous. Like something inside me had been gutted and left to rot. We pulled up to the house, our house. 2 stories of stone and siding under the warm glow of a porch light. Everything looked exactly the same. The garden lights. The welcome mat. The quiet street. It was all still there, perfectly preserved, like nothing had happened. But something had happened. I turned off the ignition and just sat there, staring at the front door. It looked like home. But it wasn't. Not anymore. She finally looked up from her phone and sighed. "Are you seriously going to sulk all night?" Her voice was light, playful, like we just had a minor argument about what movie to watch. I didn't move. "You had a choice," I said quietly, voice flat, like all the emotion had been drained from it. She gave me this little smirk, almost amused. "It was just a game, Kyle. You're not actually mad, are you?" I turned to her then, finally looked her dead in the eye. "Get out of the car." She rolled her eyes but stepped out anyway, heels hitting the driveway with a casual grace like she had nothing to worry about. Why would she? In her mind, she'd already won. She figured I'd do what I always did, shrug it off, move on, maybe brood for a bit and then bury it like all the other little things. She thought she had me pegged. Not this time. She followed me inside, trailing behind like nothing was wrong. I walked ahead of her, my steps steady, cold. The moment I crossed through the front door, something inside me clicked. I wasn't the same man who had left for that party hours ago. The husband, the friend, the fool, he was gone. Something had died in that silence. And what came back was someone else entirely. Emily kicked off her heels by the door, stretching like she'd just come home from yoga. "Well, that was wild," she said, running a hand through her hair. "You've got to admit, the look on everyone's faces was priceless." I didn't answer. I was already halfway up the stairs. She called after me. "Kyle, you're not actually going to bed angry, are you?" At the top of the steps, I paused and looked down at her. "I'm not angry," I said. And I meant it. I wasn't angry anymore. I was something else. I turned and disappeared into the dark of our bedroom without another word. She scoffed, like I was just being dramatic. I could hear her walking toward the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine, humming under her breath. She thought I was sulking. That by morning, things would be fine again. But that version of me, the man who forgave too easily, who let things slide just to keep the peace, he wasn't in this house anymore. While she sipped her wine in the kitchen, pretending everything was normal, I was upstairs, lying on the bed in total darkness, staring at the ceiling, thinking, planning. A few minutes passed. Then more. I didn't move. She didn't come upstairs right away. I knew she wouldn't. She liked having the last word, the last move. She probably figured she'd waltz up in a little while, say something cute, kiss my neck, remind me of how playful she could be when she wanted to make things right. That was her playbook. But when she finally did make her way upstairs, I could feel the change in her. Something about the silence must have started to settle in. Maybe the wine didn't taste as good anymore. Maybe the note on the table had something to do with it. I'd left it where she'd find it. Plain white envelope. No name. No frills. Just one line inside. I saw everything. This is only the beginning. I didn't see her read the note, but I heard the stillness that followed. She'd gone quiet downstairs, too quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't come from comfort but from unease, like something was crawling under her skin. Eventually, I heard her footsteps on the stairs, slower this time. More cautious. She was climbing like she was walking into a room full of broken glass. She reached our bedroom door and stood there for a long second. I didn't move. Didn't say a word. Then she pushed the door open slowly. The room was nearly pitch black. Only the faint glow of the city skyline filtered through the curtains, casting soft shadows across the walls. I lay perfectly still under the covers, my back to her. I could hear her breathing shift, relieved, maybe. She probably thought I'd fallen asleep, that all was well, that she'd overreacted to the note. But the closer she got, the more I could feel her doubt creeping in. Something wasn't sitting right with her. Maybe it was the way I was lying too still. Or maybe it was just the weight of what she'd done finally pressing down. She whispered my name. Kyle. I didn't answer. Another beat. Then again, a little louder. Kyle, come on. She was trying to sound playful, but there was a crack in her voice. A slight tremble she couldn't hide. Still, I didn't move. She hesitated, and I could sense her debating whether to touch me or not. I knew her well enough to picture her standing there, arms crossed, annoyed and uncertain, trying to hold on to the upper hand. Then she reached out. The second her hand touched my shoulder, I turned. Not gently. Not slowly. I moved like a machine, mechanical, precise. My eyes locked on hers in the dim light. Wide open. Unblinking. She jerked her hand back, startled. Jesus, she gasped. I just stared at her. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then tried again. You scared me, she said, laughing nervously. You're really trying to freak me out now, huh? I didn't blink. Didn't smile. I just stared. Then I spoke. Low. Cold. You never even hesitated. The words came out flat, like I was stating a fact. And in my mind I was. She stood frozen. It was just a game, she said, her voice breaking slightly. A game, I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. She shifted uncomfortably. I mean, yeah. I know it went too far, but you're acting like I cheated or something. I raised an eyebrow. She crossed her arms, trying to reclaim some kind of control. Okay, you're upset, fine. But this whole silent, creepy thing you're doing? It's messed up. I sat up slowly, deliberately, not looking away from her. She took a small step back without even realizing it. I'm going to bed, I said. You should too. She blinked. Wait, that's it? That's all you're gonna say? Tomorrow. My tone didn't leave room for discussion. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a wall. Morning sunlight spilled through the bedroom curtains, soft and gold, warming the sheets where I used to sleep. Emily stirred beside me, still half asleep, her body stretching like it was just another normal day. For a few seconds, she looked peaceful, safe, as if none of what happened the night before had actually sunk in. But peace doesn't last long when your world is about to split in two. She reached across the bed, probably expecting to find me still lying there. But my side was empty, cold. And that was her first real clue. She sat up slowly, brushing hair out of her face, eyes scanning the room like she was trying to place what felt off. I hadn't made a sound when I left that morning. No slamming doors. No stomping down the stairs. Just gone. The way a ghost disappears when you stop believing in it. She grabbed her phone off the nightstand. Nothing. No texts. No missed calls. No notifications. Not from me. Not from anyone. That's when it started to hit her. Normally, her phone buzzed non-stop, group chats, social media, people reaching out. But now, silence. Digital silence. The kind that made your skin crawl. She shook it off and wrapped a robe around herself, trying to play it cool. Told herself I'd just gone for a run. That I needed to clear my head. I used to do that sometimes, after fights. But this wasn't a fight. And she wasn't going to find me outside doing laps around the neighborhood. Downstairs, the house was dead quiet. Too quiet. The same kind of silence you hear in abandoned buildings. Familiar, but wrong. And then she saw it. Another envelope. Sitting perfectly in the center of the kitchen island. Just like the last one. Same clean, white paper. Same neat fold. No name, no handwriting on the outside. Just waiting. She walked toward it, slowly now. Like her body already knew what her brain wasn't ready to process. She picked it up, opened it, unfolded the note. Her hands started to shake halfway through the message. "Good morning, Emily. Did you sleep well? I hope so, because today is going to be different. You wanted freedom, I gave it to you. Go ahead. Check your bank accounts. Call your office. Reach out to your friends. Let me know if any of them pick up." Her breath caught in her throat. She dropped the letter and reached for her phone again. This time, faster. Her fingers flying across the screen as she opened our banking app. She had accounts, multiple ones. Emergency fund. Personal savings. The shared mortgage account. Loading. Balance. $0. Her face drained of color. She checked another. Same result. Then another. "All gone," she whispered. "No, no, no, no," like it might reverse something. Like begging could undo what had already been set in motion. She called the bank. Just static, then a cheery voice on an automated message. "This account is no longer active. Please visit your local branch for assistance." Her hands were trembling now. She tried her work line. Voicemail. She redialed. "This number is no longer in service." Her friends. One by one, she tapped their names. Clara, Samantha, even Tyler, the idiot who gave her the dare in the first place. Disconnected. Every single one. She clutched her phone like it was the only thing anchoring her to reality. But her grip was slipping fast. Then she reached for her wallet, ripped through the credit cards. Declined. 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 All useless. A quiet panic set in. Not loud. Not yet. Just that creeping dread that starts in your gut and spreads like ice through your veins. She ran up the stairs, wild now, like maybe I was still there. Like maybe she could stop this if she just found me in time. But my closet was empty. Drawers. Cleared out. Nightstand. There. Even the faint indentation on my pillow had started to disappear. I hadn't just left. I'd erased myself. Completely. She staggered back, hands on the doorframe, heart thudding against her ribs. This wasn't about a stupid dare anymore. This was something else entirely. Something she never saw coming. And she was just beginning to understand that she wasn't being ignored. She was being erased. Emily was falling apart now. I could feel it, even from a distance. The control she always thought she had was slipping, crumbling beneath her like rotten wood. She rushed back downstairs, still in her robe, barefoot, wild-eyed, like the walls were closing in. And in a way they were. But it wasn't just the money or the silence that got her. It was the photos. Or, more specifically, the lack of them. She stood in our living room, the same room we'd spent years decorating, making a home, and she realized something horrifying. The framed memories, the smiling snapshots from birthdays and vacations and anniversaries. They were gone. Every single one. Not a trace left. Like the life we had built together had never even existed. Her mouth parted in disbelief as she stumbled over to the dining table, hands trailing across the surface like maybe, just maybe, something would reappear if she touched it. The note from earlier was still there, that smug piece of paper that started her unraveling. She crumpled it in her fist and hurled it across the room. Then she grabbed her phone again, scrolling madly through our last conversation. What little of it was left. She texted me. "Where are you?" Read. No response. She called. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Again. Still nothing. She started whispering to herself now, trying to put the pieces together. Trying to explain it away. He wouldn't do this. He's mad, but not this. But deep down, she already knew. I wasn't just gone. I'd vanished, and I took her with me. She ran into the office next, yanking drawers open, desperate for something, anything, that could prove this wasn't permanent. She looked for bank statements, legal documents, even my old laptop. But I'd taken it all. Not one trace of me remained. Not a single scrap of paper. Not a single password. Not a clue. She screamed. Loud. Full of rage and fear and disbelief. Her voice echoed off the walls of the home that was no longer hers. Then she did something desperate. She called her mom. Voicemail. She tried her sister. Voicemail again. She flipped through her contacts, dialing everyone she could think of, clinging to hope like it was the last rung on a ladder. But all of them, gone. Disconnected numbers. No service. Empty signals. It was like she'd woken up in a world that still looked like hers but didn't remember who she was. She stood in the kitchen, gripping the counter, hands trembling, chest heaving. She whispered my name like it would bring me back. But it wouldn't. She grabbed her car keys, panic now clawing at every corner of her mind. She flung open the front door and looked toward the driveway. Her car was still there. Mine was not. But something wasn't right. She walked over to the vehicle and yanked the door open, slamming herself into the driver's seat. Her hands flew to the ignition. Nothing. Dashboard lights were dead. Engine silent. She popped the hood in a frenzy, stepped out, and looked inside. Wires. All of them sliced clean. I'd disabled her car. Cut her off from the outside world, just like I'd planned. She stepped back, breath fogging in the morning air, heart hammering against her ribs like it was trying to punch its way out of her chest. She turned in circles, scanning the neighborhood. People were walking dogs. Joggers passed by with earbuds in. Mr. Davies was watering his lawn across the street like it was any other Saturday morning. But for her, the world had stopped spinning. She wasn't part of it anymore. Emily finally understood. I hadn't just walked away. I'd built a cage. And she was locked inside it. Thank you for visiting my YouTube channel. Your support, likes, and comments truly inspire me to create even more engaging content. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. You're a part of this amazing community, and I'm thrilled to share my stories with you. See you in the next video on YouTube.